Welcome to the Mrs. R Relevant Daily Draft Podcast, sponsored by the Draft Professors. Joined today by draft professors Clint, Taylor, and Steve. Steve is not on camera. He is in the emergency room, so he'll be on the podcast for a little bit while he is waiting for medical care. I think is the right way to put that. But we're here to do the Senior Bowl and the Shrine Bowl safety groups. And Clint, when you and I have spoke at numerous times that you really like the Senior Bowl safety list, so much so that you switched podcasts this week to join this one. So you want to kind of set the table for everybody as far as what the Senior Bowl safety group looks like for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a strong Senior Bowl group across the board, but in my opinion, with the respect to the others, I don't think there's any question the safety group's the most well-stocked. You know, looking at my board specifically, I mean, you're talking about Genesis Smith. I've got at safety 2. Emmanuel McNeil-Warren out of Toledo, safety 3. I've always been really high on Zakee Wheatley. I'm a little higher than consensus there out of Penn State. He's a top 5-6 guy for me as well. Kamari Ramsey's very versatile. He's in that safety group out of Southern Cal. AJ Halsey's one, big thumper, 5'11", 222, real physical guy. It just keeps going. Jacoby Thomas I've got right there around safety 8 out of Miami, and we'll get more of him on Monday night. And it just keeps going. I mean, they've got VJ Payne, 6'3", 210-pounder out of Kansas State, guy that's really got some linebacker tendencies to him, physical as hell. Bud Clark, kind of a smaller ball hawk, can play some slot out of TCU. Michael Taffy out of Texas, kind of a cult prospect, as I call it, CULT. Some people that are really, really high on him there. It just keeps going and going. I mean, Deshaun Singleton, et cetera, et cetera. But, it's easy for me to say that they've got 6 of my top 8 or 9 safeties in the whole class are going to be in Mobile. So from a rep to rep, one guy after the other, it's as good a look as you're going to get at this class. Just as a general person interested in the draft, like speaking on myself, my team's the Falcons. We don't care about the safeties in this class. That's not a need. But just as that being my favorite position and just the draft in general, it's like I couldn't imagine going and covering this if you were a team, say, like the Bengals, who were just starving for one. A lot of their fan base talking about, even in the first round. And that's just off the top of my head. I think it's thrilling. So, no, I mean, that they did an incredible job with this group.
So, Taylor, do you want to take the question here from Anthony and talk about AJ Halsey or any of the other safeties in the Senior Bowl that you want?
Yeah. I have Halsey as my 4th-ranked safety, and I don't really think that it's a problem. I think he can come down in the box, and he is a big physical guy. I followed since high school. Does it scare you guys? It's height. I don't think the height is really that big of a deal. Because of the way he plays, like how much he's a playmaker, how much he's around the ball, how he moves as well. Like I think all of that factors into him being a really good prospect in the NFL. So I wouldn't be concerned about his height.
Yeah, and there's a couple of draft professors that will take AJ Halsey really high. Like Anthony Russo will take him at pick 33 for the Jets. So I don't think it's scaring too many draft professors away as far as the height. Hey, Steve, do you want to take the question about Emmanuel McNeil-Warren? Any thoughts there?
Yeah, sorry, just had to come off mute. Yeah, to play the boundary, I mean, I think we know the story, right? He was a former walk-on. I don't really see him as a true center fielder. He's a little on the lean frame side. But just, he was an underrated recruit, developed into a multi-year starter. He's a leader. He earned the trust of his coaches and his teammates, through his toughness and his communication rather than just on traits alone. I see the comment in there. I do like that Justin Simmons comp that just came through. He's got that NFL caliber motor, specifically, Anthony, to your question. I don't know that he has the hips for it. I don't think he's the most athletic. Um, his instincts, his awareness, his toughness, his efficiency in coverage is where he will make his money in the league. The play strength, the ability to handle complex route combinations, and an NFL speed that may, be more of an area of improvement, as well as his tackling consistency. But, he's one of my higher guys. I mean, Clint talked about it before, taking Caleb Downs and Dylan Thieneman off, who are my top two. 10 out of my 12 top safeties are going to be there.
Yeah, and I think it's other than Caleb Downs and Dylan Thieneman, who would be the next highest safety that's not at the Senior Bowl for you, Clint?
You kind of have to dance around a little bit. I'd throw a name out there that I'm higher than consensus. I'd say Bishop Fitzgerald out of Southern Cal, 5'11", 205, crazy ball hawk. Like, what was the number I had in here as far as interceptions? 10 career interceptions, started at Coffeyville Community College, transferred to NC State, then wound up at Southern Cal. I mean, this is the kind of guy that's like had 8 picks in the last 2 years. Earlier, I believe it was Steve talking about McNeil Warren saying he's not a center fielder. Well, if you want a center fielder, yes, Dylan Thieneman's the best cover one safety in this draft. But you go a little lower down the board. I think Fitzgerald's one that's got a lot of playmaking upside for a cheaper cost. I've got him around there dancing around with guys like a Jalen Kilgore, which some people have in their nickel group. I like having him classified here in the safety group right now. And kind of like I mentioned earlier with Jacoby Thomas, being a different archetype of player, Thomas is more physical. But I like Fitzgerald a lot. I think there's a lot of playmaking ability. And another guy that, like I said, 0-star out of Virginia, signed with community college and makes so many damn plays. He couldn't help but get noticed to the point of playing for Lincoln Riley. So that's one I'd throw out there.
Taylor, overall, when you look at the safety group at the Senior Bowl, who are, let's say, your 3 highest graded safeties at the game?
In the game, I have Michael Taff, AJ Halsey, and Jalen Kilgore, because I agree with Clint. I like grouping him in with the safeties here. I actually graded him as a corner and a safety, and he graded a little bit higher as a safety in my model. So I'm leaving him at safety for now. And then another name I'll throw out there that we haven't talked about yet is Bishop Fitzgerald's running mate, Kamari Ramsey. Kamari Ramsey is a dude that I think is going to play slot in the NFL. Like, I really think that's where he's going to find his home. But he's a playmaker. You talk about Bishop Fitzgerald making plays. Kamari Ramsey is right there with him. You see him flash around the USC tape as well. So those are kind of my top guys, going into the Senior Bowl.
Yep. And Steve, if you had to pick out which of the safeties at the Senior Bowl will be gone at or before pick 64. So basically they're either a round 1 or a round 2 safety for you. Which safeties at the Senior Bowl do you have graded that high?
Right now, so Kamari Ramsey is my safety number 3. I have him going. I've got AJ Halsey gone. I've got, what was your criteria? The end of the second round?
Basically, by the end of round 2.
End of round 2. Yeah, I'm going to throw McNeil Warren and Zakee Wheatley in there. I have those guys all gone by the end of the second round.
Okay, Clint, would you have any different round 2 or better grades on the Senior Bowl safety list?
I'm stupid high on Genesis Smith out of Arizona. 6'2", 204, incredible length, even more than his height suggests. A kid hits hard, really physical, runs the alley incredibly well, no wasted motion getting to the ball carrier. In terms of some of that and the playmaking ability, gives me some Xavier Watts vibes in my notes. He's somebody, I said the note earlier about, using the Bengals as an example, were they not to go, say, Downs round 1. I think he'd be somebody on the short list to bring some physicality back to him in the back end of that secondary, maybe round 2. But I like a lot of the other names mentioned. I mean, McNeil Warren's a goner. in the second round. I think Kamari Ramsey as well. AJ Halsey, I mean, a team I'd throw out for Halsey. I'd love to see him playing for McVay in Los Angeles. I think he'd fit in that defense really well, even if they are likely turning over coordinators with Chris Shula as a top candidate. I think he'll wind up in Pittsburgh. And then, like I said, I like the fact that Steve mentioned Wheatley because I'm higher than consensus on Wheatley. I think consensus would tell you he's probably more of a third-round guy right now. But, man, if there's a team out there that needs somebody who is just fast as hell to the ball, instinctual, can play run defense, even though he's got kind of a wiry build at 6'3", 198, even more perspective on kind of his build. I had Ronnie Harrison in there as a name, coming out in terms of some of the play style. But, I mean, we talked earlier, but we mentioned McNeil Warren's hips. It's like Wheatley's oily. And I think I could see a team in the second round, particularly the back end, that has an eye for him and really sees the fit. I could see him sneaking in there. But as far as those guys, I think that would be about it. If somebody wanted to have, I don't know if I said Ramsey. Yeah, I did. I throw Ramsey in there. If you classify Kilgore, I think he could be as well. It's like, a player I had my notes for him was Noel Williams out of Kansas City. A lot of that versatility and some of that body habitus that he has. And then lastly, I don't have as good of a feel on where I think Jacoby Thomas would be, but I wouldn't throw him in there right now. But that could be somebody I walk out of Mobile and I'm like, I don't know, man. But I mean, that's just another testament to the amount of talent in this group. I mean, we just threw out about 5 names of guys that can go in the top 64 at a devalued position. But with this kind of draft where there's lacking some high-end talent more than we're used to, teams that'll look up and be like, this is our guy, we want him, we don't care if we're reaching 10 picks, we're going to get him. I mean, no, I think it's absolutely possible.
So, Taylor, do you have any different safeties, round 2 or better? And then how many of these guys are in your top 100?
Yeah, so that's where it's going to get interesting for me because top 100, I actually don't have any round 2 grades on any of these players outside of Caleb Downs and Dylan Thieneman. I don't have any. I have Caleb Downs as a top 5 guy. I have Dylan Thieneman as a early round 2 guy. I think it's possible that I have 8 guys as a round 3 or round 4 grade. 7 of them are at the Senior Bowl or the Shrine Bowl. I think Lewis Moore is at the Shrine Bowl, and he is my 10th ranked safety right now. So none of the names I can argue with. Like Taft could easily jump up there. Halsey, Kilgore, Ramsey. I think Kilgore and Ramsey are more slot guys. So whether you want to say they're safety, depending on how you like them, I think they're both going to play in the slot. Ramsey did it filling in for injury this year. Kilgore, that's where he's at his best. McNeil Warren, Genesis Smith, also guys I think could go. And then I actually have my safety number 8, who's not at either of these games, is Jalen Husky from Maryland. So he's another guy that I think could potentially jump up into the top 60-ish. But yeah, I think all of those guys I just named would be in my top 100.
Okay. And I think from Clint, you hit on safety's a devalued position. So we may grade players in the top 100, but they fall out of round 3 just because teams are going to focus on edge or offensive tackle or wide receiver, premium positions more than safety until day 3.
Well, the average amount of safeties that get drafted, if you look at the last 3 drafts, is 19. So we're sitting here talking about 5 or 6 guys we think could be round 2. Let's say that happened. You got to stretch another 5 rounds over
14 guys.
About a dozen. Yeah, about a baker's dozen worth of guys, and that's including ones that you would take. I think he's going to be a good special team. I mean, we're not even talking about guys that you could project to be heavy rotational or starting caliber. So, no, I mean, if you were playing bettor's logic and you were kind of sticking more to the traditional sense, we're probably talking a little heavy here in the second round. But that's just a testament to the group.
Okay. Hey, Ryan Sparks, thank you very much. We did not know that.
That's awesome.
We'll be diving deeper into the Shrine safeties towards the end of the podcast. We're going to spend a little bit of time on the Senior Bowl guys. So one of the Senior Bowl guys that I think is really polarizing is Jalen Kilgore from South Carolina. And the reason why I say that is, like, Clint was willing to drop his name into a round 2 bucket, But then there's other people that said, I won't touch Kilgore till round 5. Taylor, why do you think the evaluations on Kilgore have a varying degree of alignment?
I think people that evaluate sometimes want to put players in a bucket before they get into an NFL system. Like, quite honestly, like, I think they want to put him in a bucket of, oh, he can't play deep safety, he can't play outside corner, he has to play in this one specific, role in an offense or a defense, excuse me. But he's one of those guys that just makes plays. Like, if you are going to wait on him until the 5th round, you're not going to get him because he's going to be gone. Simple as that. So Kilgore, he's going to play in the slot most likely, but he's one of those guys that, he doesn't have necessarily the experience playing deep safety and, ranging, taking a half of the field and being able to, succeed in that role. He's not going to be a player that is going to, come down and, have an impact, within like the middle of the field, I guess is what I'm saying. Like, middle of the field, he's not that guy. He's going to play on the outside near in the flat. He's really, really good at that. He's okay taking one-on-one. Like, I watched reps where he takes Ryan Williams one-on-one in coverage all the way down the field. Now, we all know Ryan Williams didn't have a great year, but that being said, the fact that Jalen Kilgore is running with one of the best wide receivers in college football on paper, right, one-on-one, and making plays like PBUs and things like that, that tells me enough to know that he is a player that I want on my team inside the top 100.
Well, and
Clint,
two,
where are you? Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think as well, you have to look at him. He's about 6'1", 210, 211. He's absolutely shredded. Like, dude's jacked. The production's there from the position he's been at. I mean, this is a guy that had 5 interceptions in 2024. I think, too, as we watch the NFL more and more and more cater to nickels and dime backers and playing quarter half and more of these complex cover zone defensive schemes, somebody like him is more of a viable tool than he would have been, say, 10 years ago. I think there's a lot of there's teams that could get drunk on this guy on day 2. And to the point of the 5th round comment earlier, if you look up at the top of the 4th and we're going into Saturday and he's still on the board, somebody's going to have him circled in red Sharpie and highlighted. A lot of upside on the guy. I think he's just a football player. I mean, we'll see how he tests. And he's somebody that, like I said, the different archetypes of safeties in this class is going to be where it's so fucking wild how different certain guys stack on certain teams' boards. Like, take a guy like we talked about Michael Taffy earlier, like 6 foot, 190 pounds. There's going to be some teams that don't even put him on a board because he's sub 200. And then there's going to be teams that don't give a shit. You'll have teams that want to have more of that thick build, like we've mentioned Halsey, like we've mentioned Kilgore, some of that more, somebody that can play more cover 1 and still have that size, like a thin a minute at 207 with 40 starts at this point. It would be fascinating if I could pick one group that you could look at all 32 teams' boards to see how they had their top 15 in a position to be safety.
Yeah, and I'm glad both of you brought up what you did, right? I forget which one of you said, but I like him, in that hybrid role. I do think he fits a split safety, your quarters, your match 4, your nickel. He's not the pure center fielder. He's going to win with discipline and physicality, right? His processing is good. My knock on him really was just, and he improved upon it, 25 versus 24, was his missed tackle rate. And he did get remarkably better. But yeah, I like him in that hybrid. That's Kilgore. Yeah.
So we covered most of these safeties when we did scouting reports. So if you want a deep dive on the safeties, you can go to the Draft Professor YouTube channel, find the safety playlist, and you will see Taylor and Steve doing a deep dive on most of the players that are at the Senior Bowl. But a couple of the players that we missed were Jacoby Thomas, the safety from Miami. That was not a player that was on our radar until he was on the Senior Bowl list. Clint, I think when we were backstage prior to going live, you said that you were pretty high on Jacoby Thomas. So do you want to talk about his game a little bit and what kind of safety he is?
Yeah, I mean, I think for starters, as simple as it sounds, guy's just a damn football player. It's like if you dig deep, I mean, even going back to like him in high school, like this is the guy that was in the local paper as like, oh yeah, he played quarterback, running back, receiver, tight end, blocked 2 punts, kicked an extra point, played linebacker, played edge, had 3 sacks, had a pick, played some corner. Like you look up and you're like, this kid played every single position tonight. And I think you dig deeper and started out at Middle Tennessee. Kind of an underlooked player, and he's just developed over time. He's tough as shit, man. I mean, you look at these college football playoff games down the stretch, and he's kind of just been somebody that kept making the plays. I mean, he's also been at Tennessee last year before this transfer. I had on here, guy flies around with his hair on fire, combined urgency and physicality, fiery, physical mentality. Will drive into the chest of offensive linemen. Without any fear. I mean, he'll take on anybody, no matter the size. Got on here, he's got 6 career forced fumbles, which is just a statistical testament to some of those comments about his physicality. And then lastly, I just had on here, it's like, man, he's productive as hell as a robber, just jumping these underneath routes. And we've seen that in the college football playoff. Kind of going back to my comment earlier about archetypes of safeties that different teams are going to prefer. I mean, this is a dude that, and they've already got the guy in the role, but like Mike McDonald would think this guy was the bee's knees. I think that it's pretty comfortable to say he's probably in that 3rd, early 4th range right now. But that's somebody in the 3rd, 4th when you look at the traditional value of safeties that you're like, this guy can be a starter. And if he's not a starter, this guy's going to be heavily rotational for us. And then lastly, I just said, and even going back more to his ability as a box, he can get after the quarterback's ass. I mean, his pressure rate's great, got some sack numbers. Very fascinated to see how Miami dials him up Monday night in terms of Mendoza, because Mendoza does have some good athleticism. It's a good scrambling ability. But Signetti, I wouldn't want this cat, Jacoby Thomas, hitting him in the mouth either. So he's somebody that's kind of bordering around that safety 10 range I'm feeling out, and he's on my short list of just no bias draft 32 teams wide heading into Mobile that I really want to see show out. He's been one of the more, if not the most fun player that, like you said, earlier we didn't have as much on him on the Draft Professor site going into the year, and throughout the year he's come on strong lately. It's like that's the beauty of the riser in this process, and that's a big part of the fun of all this. He can only go up from here. I think he set a nice baseline.
Clint, would you call him the drive stopper?
I mean, yeah, dude. Look at some of the plays he's made here at the end of the A&M game. Some of the tone setting he had against Ole Miss. I mean, and going back to my comment about his pressure on the quarterback, it's like, dude, you don't have to be a physicist. You don't have to have a PhD in physics to know that this guy against Trinidad Chambliss is going to end up with Trinidad Chambliss ran over. He's got enough cover ability, like I said, as a robber, like that interception we had in the A&M game, to really see him jump underneath routes. And I just think he's a different aspect. Like I said, we look at some of these more top safeties up here, and while they're all good in run support, Dylan Thieneman's good in run support. I don't think he's a killer. Zakee Wheatley, very quick to the ball, but in terms of his physical habits, he's not a killer. Halsey's a killer. But you look at some of those names, it's just he's very intriguing to me. Like I said, in terms of what team's going to fall for him, and what he can do down the stretch, and how he looks at Mobile when they are not allowed to be as physical. That'll be very interesting in terms of looking at those intricacies of his game, matching up more in like one-on-one situations.
So Taylor, where are you and Jacoby Thomas, the safety from Miami, right now?
Yeah, I think I said I had him at like safety 15 maybe in the comments, but I realized I had one of my cells was a 0. So he jumped up to number 9. I just didn't have it entered properly. That's about right.
There you go.
He's 9th, and he's right next to Genesis Smith, Emmanuel McNeil-Warren. Like, they're all in that range of, like I said, I just mentioned like what I have 10 guys that could go, in the 3rd or 4th round or have them ranked there. He just made that 11. So I will just tell you, he's in that range of all those guys. I think he's a good player. And Clint's right. it's about the rise, right? Like he's had extra opportunities to showcase his talents, and he's been dominating in these playoff games. And it's, he's kind of on a meteoric rise right now. It's almost like him and Keontae Scott are two of the best DBs in the country. We're now seeing it because they're the only teams playing, right? So it's highlighted even more. Obviously it matters what shows up in big games, and Jacoby Thomas is showing up in the best way. So yeah, I don't think a 6'2", 6'3", 210-pound hard hitting safety is going to do worse in the combine process. He's going to continue to go up because, people are going to fall in love with him. So yeah, I'm excited about what his future could be.
Okay. And Steve, where are you and Jacoby Thomas right now?
Well, for me, he actually is, without zeros in cells. I do have him at safety 15 for me. He's below Genesis Smith for me. I do have him a little bit below Bishop Fitzgerald. I have him ahead of Lewis Moore of Indiana. He's ahead for me of Devin Neal and Amari Farrell, as well as VJ Payne. But round 5 guy for me right now.
Okay. And one other safety that we didn't do scouting reports on was Deshaun Singleton from Nebraska. Taylor, what do you have on Deshaun Singleton?
Yeah, another guy that's, EJ and I covered, I think it was EJ, maybe on the slot episode, right?
Yes.
So he's another guy that is probably going to play in the slot. Like he's down close to the line of scrimmage. But yeah, he's a team captain. He started at Hutchinson Community College. And I mentioned this on the, on the slot episode, but I'll mention it here too. Some other notable Hutch Community College alums in the NFL: Alvin Kamara, Jacorian Bennett, Devontae Wyatt, Gerald Everett, Devondre Campbell, Cordero Patterson. Like this is I know even Clint mentioned Coffeyville earlier. Like that community, or like the JUCO scene in Kansas is unbelievable. So at Hutch, those are some of the names that come out. But yeah, I think his best trait is his one-on-one matchup with tight ends. I think that's where he's going to be deployed, and he can really lock down some dudes. He's 6'3", 210 is what I have listed. We'll see what he measures, obviously, at the combine and stuff. But yeah, he is a kind of a big slot, he's going to play in that role, I think, in the NFL. I don't see him, much in the back end as a safety, playing a half of the field or anything like that. But I think he's going to be a special teams guy. Quite honestly, I think he's going to be a stud on special teams. Like my comp for him is JL Skinner, 7th round pick, Broncos, plays special teams, hard hitting, one of the best special teams players in the entire NFL. I think that's Deshaun Singleton. I think he can play a little bit on the back end of the defense, but yeah, Deshaun Singleton, I think he's big slot, can play a little bit, special teamer though.
Clint, how about you? Where are you in Singleton right now?
Man, that JL Skinner tape was badass when he was coming out of Boise. Singleton's somebody I've definitely got to get more familiar with in Mobile, but I would piggyback that slot comment in saying that I think he's well-timed in this NFL. The comment about him hanging with tight ends. It's like you look at some of these, as tight ends are getting more comfortable being able to be thinner and thinner and thinner and less having to be your classic 6'6", 250 guy. Really being able to hang with them, take a Kyle Pitts, for example. He can be listed at 250. I believe that when I see it. You look at this draft and some of the tight ends we have in here. Justin Jolly is a 6'3", 240-pound guy. Tanner Koziel as a 6'7", kind of leaner, big catch radius kind of tight end in that slot mold. Michael Trigg out of Baylor, et cetera, we can keep going. Eli Stowers has got kind of that H-back build out of Vandy, who's the league's apparently higher on than consensus media right now. His ability to run with those guys and have the physicality to match is going to be really interesting. And when you look at that tight end group in Mobile, I'd have Singleton circled as a guy I wouldn't want to go one-on-one against during the week, the practices in the week. So he's one I'm really excited about. That's about all I would have to add at this time.
Okay. Steve, Deshaun Singleton, anything that you want to share as far as your eval on him?
From what I watched, I'll agree with Clint and Chaw. I just like his length. He's rangy. I do agree. I would like him in that slot role. He's got a heck of a above average wingspan. So, when we're talking, these tight ends that Clint brought up, whether, Justin Jolie or these H-back builds, yeah, this guy is going to feast, in terms of tackling in that position. But that's all I got on him right now.
And is there any other Senior Bowl safety that somebody wants to just bring up on the podcast before we switch to the Shrine? Not sure if everybody got to talk about the players that they like or if they want to talk about AJ Halsey more. Chaw.
Steve, he's talking to you about Bud Clark.
That was who I was about to say. That was really the last person that we kind of left out.
I've spent like the last 4 months just, on a pedestal over Bud Clark. Clint, if you want a shot, be my guest, because these two dudes are sick of me talking about him.
No, I want to at least hear the Spark Notes.
All right, let me get them pulled up.
Here, I'll give you one while you're pulling that up. I'm a K-State
Okay,
guy.
go ahead.
VJ Payne. I mean, Clint briefly mentioned him, 6'3", 210. I think he's a little lighter than that, especially in the lower half. We'll see how he does in the one-on-ones because coverage, I think, is his biggest question mark. Although he's decent in zone coverage, man coverage, he can get a little lost. He is a guy that, in my opinion, has one of the best ceilings in the entire draft, but we're nowhere near that right now. Like, he's outside my top 15 safeties, but on day 3, like, he's a guy who can immediately help on special teams, and then he's going to potentially grow from there. I think he has all the potential in the world. When I watched the tape, and maybe I'm grading harder because I'm a K-State guy, but he didn't improve on things we saw in summer scouting. Like VJ Payne was a guy we talked about in the summer, right? And he didn't necessarily take that rise that I would have wanted him to see. So I really hope he tests well. I hope he plays well at the Senior Bowl, things like that. I think he's a guy who could rise, but he has all the talent in the world. Just I want to see it on the field a little more.
I'd correlate VJ Payne to a comment I had last week on the linebackers episode that I also jumped in on as a guest. And I talked about Xavier Nwankpa out of Iowa as, at 6'3", 215. You take my current, we'll see what happens with the head coach turnover, defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich. Ulbrich, one of his calling cards is the safety to linebacker convert. Whether you've seen it with Jamie Sherwood, safety at Auburn, got a huge payday with the Jets at linebacker, whether you've seen it with Devon Diablo with the Raiders, and then this year, particularly when he was healthy, he was an ass kicker, man. For us, big safety coming out of Virginia Tech, moved to that linebacker spot. Malik Verdon was a guy I was high on coming out of Iowa State a year or two ago, went undrafted. Falcons picked him up for that same vision for Ulbrich, got immediately moved to the linebacker room, as I thought. I could see the potential with that within Nwankpa, and I think Payne, that's somebody that, maybe a little bit of a stretch, but I'd be interested if that'd be for that minded coordinator across the league. They might not say, we could get a little creative with this guy and let him be multiple. And to the comment about, kind of his lower half, that's something I'm excited to see up close with my own eyes in Mobile here in a week or two.
Yeah. And to add something, so VJ Payne can play a half a spot in the safety room and a half a spot in the linebacker room. And he can save a team a spot on the 53 because he could be a backup at both. That would improve his stock a little bit.
Well, and knock the shit out of you on special teams.
Yeah,
right.
As long as he can play special teams, 100%.
Yeah, that's the key. Yep.
Right. You play special teams, and you can take reps at linebacker. You can take reps at safety. So if, he would be the 4th safety on the team, he might be the 5th linebacker or 6th linebacker. So the likelihood he has to be thrust into action at either position would be low. But if he's filling that backup spot at both positions, that's going to be really valuable if he's still on the board in round 6 or 7, because somebody's going to say he can make the roster. That's always the discussion. So if you're not familiar, I'm a Bills fan. We hear it from Brandon Beane every draft in rounds 5, 6, and 7. We had to pick a player that we thought had a chance to make the team. So it's not just best player available. It's the best player available that could make the team, if that makes any sense, right? There may be higher graded players on the board, but if that's a full wide receiver room or a full running back room, they're not going to draft it, kind of thing.
I think we talked about, in our chat, conversely, I had a Steelers beat writer on my show prior to the game against the Texans. And, number one, I was consoling him a little bit over losing Raheem Biles to Texas, who's a linebacker I really like. And we got into it about Kyle Lewis. And, we're talking about the safeties like Sherwood from safety to linebacker. And Kyle Lewis is a guy I think that needs to convert the other way, because otherwise he's going to be asked to add on a lot of weight, And I look at guys in this linebacker class that I like. I'll give you a day 3 guy that I really like, Lander Barton out of Utah. I mean, the dude's a thumper. And, I think I'd put him in every mock draft I've done for the Jets. But yeah, Kyle Lewis is the guy that's got to go the other way. Anyway.
So Steve, you actually brought up a good point. So Kyle Lewis is a linebacker at the Senior Bowl. And there's another linebacker at the Senior Bowl that fits that athletic type, and that's Owen Heineke.
Yeah, both been seeing a lot of buzz on him.
Yeah, those are really athletic linebackers that, like Kyle Lewis, ultimately, he's listed as a linebacker, but a lot of his snaps came at the slot.
He's a star playing that hybrid.
Right.
Yep.
So, Clint, how do you project Kyle Lewis to the NFL?
I see him as a star. That's easy for me to be familiar with. That's one of Kirby Smart's real calling cards. I'm a big Georgia Bulldogs fan. Playing that hybrid DB linebacker, playing out in the flat. We talked in the linebacker episode a lot about Harold Perkins' potential there. We talked about Kyle Lewis's potential there. The role is kind of used there, and not to be repetitive, using Seattle as another example, but it's like, you find those guys a lot in a Mike McDonald defense. There's the correct places for those star roles. We've seen a lot of some of that come, a hair lesser in terms of the body habitus than some of those guys. But I mean, like Tyke Smith with the Bucks, he's been a better pro than he was in Athens playing that role for Kirby. Just in terms of, and the Bucks were all the hell in. I mean, you saw that behind the scenes footage of them. They were all about Tyke. Great player. He's had a really good run there coming out of the gate. But that's a role where those guys, like if I was their dad, I'd be going into draft the 3 nights of the draft being like, well, these are probably the 6 or 7 teams we're looking at. We're not looking at every team taking you. But, man, I'm super high on Lewis. I mean, and he's somebody that came at the right time in this league for him to be about 6 foot, 225. You can just fly, man. You can play out there in space. For all the linebackers we talk in this class that aren't exactly going to be playing sideline to sideline or hanging out in that spot in the flat, that are more box linebackers, say like a Jacob Rodriguez. I love the mention on Lander Barton, by the way. I've mocked him to the Jets as well, so I love that mention.
God bless you. I appreciate you.
No, I needed that. Thank you. Yeah, I know. I'm really high on Lewis, and that's a great topic to be brought up. But yeah.
So Shaw, do you want to introduce the audience to the safeties at the Shrine Bowl?
Yeah, let me get Steve's list that he sent, because I don't even have an updated list. Here we go.
I got it right in front of me. Yep.
I got it now. Lewis Moore, Indiana. Miles Rouser from Arizona State. Ahmad Moses, who Steve mentioned earlier, SMU. Dalton Johnson from Arizona. Genesis Smith's running partner back there. Bishop Fitzgerald, who's been talked about already. And then DQ Smith from South Carolina. Am I missing anybody?
Robert.
Yeah, as I look, I've got
Cole
Austin Brown.
Texas Tech.
Yeah, I don't think we're allowed to talk Wisniewski, are we? I don't know. I brought him up during one of our shows, and I think one of the draft professors is not high on him. Is it Owen, Jim?
Yeah, so Owen's not high on Wisniewski, but
yeah, I know.
Not high doesn't mean not draftable. He's
not every show can be a Michael Taft tribute show, Owen, if you're watching.
But yeah, so out of that safety group, Shaw, who are your 3 highest graded safeties at the Shrine?
I have Lewis Moore, 11th in my rankings, Dalton Johnson. And these are guys that just did recent tape on like today or yesterday. Dalton Johnson is the next highest. And then I have Bishop Fitzgerald as the next highest safety for me. They're all top 15 for me.
And your 15th safety is what round grade?
My guess is, oh, I'm sorry. I clicked off the tab. I think 4th round grade, 5th round grade,
Okay.
5th round grade, 5th round.
Okay. And then, Steve, who are your highest graded safeties at the Shrine?
Yeah, so just alphabetically, without pulling up, I've got Bishop Fitzgerald of USC. I've been very high on Jalen Husky of Maryland. So glad to see he's on there. And let me just see. I've got Lewis Moore. Who do I have higher? Lewis Moore, Miles Scott, or DQ Smith? I got Lewis Moore higher.
And what round grade do you have on Lewis Moore? It's day 3?
4 for me. I don't know where Steve's at.
Day 4 for you?
Yeah, round 4 for me. The highest
okay.
guy I have, I didn't know Jalen Husky was in the Shrine Bowl until the comments of this specific video.
Lewis Moore is a 5 for me, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah, Jalen Husky's, I mean, he's 8th ranked for me. He's a 3rd round guy. So he's the highest one I would have at this Shrine game. I honestly forgot. He's not highlighted in my thing because I didn't have him pre-show.
Yeah, so, Clint, I don't know where you are in Jalen Husky. He has been one of my favorite safeties in the class ever since I saw Mel Kiper shout him out on an episode of First Draft. Where are you on Jalen Husky of Maryland?
Yeah, I'm glad you said that you're really high on him because I've seen a lot of your comments on Husky kind of being your guy in that group. I think right now he's somebody I've got to get a little more on in terms of my being informed. But I'd have him in that 4th round range. I mean, if you were to ask me my highest ranked in this, no question, Bishop Fitzgerald at the top. Have Husky there around that 2 hole. And then, I would just throw another name, not saying he's in my top 3, but I'd throw another name we have mentioned that's out there at the Shrine, I believe, is Robert Spears Jennings out of Oklahoma. 6'1", 219s, played a ton of snaps out there. Versatile safety, not somebody that's going to be pigeonholed saying it'd be like a box safety or just a center fielder. And somebody with some real special teams potential. That's another name I'd throw out there just to say the testament to the quality of the class. And for there to be what we, as I said earlier, an average of 19 taken. Yeah, is he more at that bottom number trying to get himself drafted? Yeah. But he's another fun one that I've kind of got circled to see if he can go make some noise at the Shrine. But back to your original question about Husky, I mean, in that split safety role with the ability to play in the box with, the 6 foot, 202, 203 kind of body build. If I had to circle one person that I'm most excited to learn the most about at the Shrine, it'd be Husky.
Yep. So the big debate, like within Bills Mafia, is what safety do you put next to Cole Bishop, right? So Cole Bishop is replacing Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer, who basically manned that position for like 5 years. So one of the things that made Micah Hyde unique is that Micah Hyde was a corner that converted to safety. And Jalen Husky is a corner that converted to safety. Now, Hyde did it at the NFL level because I believe when Green Bay drafted Micah Hyde, he was considered a corner. So Hyde did that conversion at the NFL level. Husky has done it at the college level. But you're getting a safety that if you needed to put him at corner or do, some type of pressure look where you had to have your free safety man up against a wide receiver, that's not a matchup that you're going to shy away from with Husky. So,
yeah,
I think you and I had talked maybe about Zakee Wheatley to Buffalo also.
You son
early
of a
on.
bitch! You stole that from me. I was about to unmute my button and say Zakee Wheatley's been a popular. We're seeing eye to eye on some of these team fits here, Steve.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think Husky, too, another thing, I'll go even further, Jim. He not only switched from corner to safety, but he started his year, the first half of it, a little bit more. He played in the back half. He played deep safety mostly. Then they moved him down into the box for the last 5 games, and he played mostly in the box. So he is one of the most versatile safeties in this class. He can play coverage. He can play down close to the line of scrimmage. He can play in the middle of the field. That's why I'm high on Husky, is because I think he is one of those versatile defensive backs that is – regardless of if, team A drafts him as they want to make him a primary, back end safety, another team thinks, we can make him one of the better box safeties or whatever that may be. He's going to have options. Whereas Clint mentioned some of these guys are going to be looking at 6 teams that want their services because they fit a specific role, you know?
Well, and you guys are walking into like the next thing I was going to point out, right? Because you see safety, like you do a mock draft, you see safety. But AJ Halsey is not the same kind of safety as Jalen Husky, and that's not the same kind of safety as Cole Wisniewski. So just because you see the word safety doesn't mean that they're the same. And that's something to kind of point out is that AJ Halsey may not be the safety for every team. He might grade really high, but if you don't need a player to play in the box, you're going to have to look at a different player because he may not be a scheme fit for what your team needs playing, where your team needs a safety to earn playing time.
Yeah, and I'd have 2 comments off of that. You know, you mentioned Wisniewski. You know, I could have put him in that conversation about Ulbrich with a convert. You know, he played his first 3 years at North Dakota State as a linebacker and had such ball skills out in space. They backed him up to that safety spot. It's ultimately what he played at Texas Tech. You know, we talked about Wheatley. He's a converted receiver. Just talking about some of these safeties that are so versatile that, hell, they've come from other positions to land at safety. And you know, you mentioned the teams that wouldn't maybe necessarily need Halsey. It's like, yeah, imagine you are a team, you know, take Dallas, for example, that plays a lot of cover 1 and a lot of center field looks. It's like they're going to be looking at Dylan Thieneman like, oh, my God, thank you for declaring. They're going to be looking at AJ Halsey like, bro, you'd be a linebacker for us.
Yep. And then the other thing is that Dallas doesn't have the draft capital to draft AJ Halsey unless they're going to do it in round 1. Dallas picks twice in round 1, doesn't pick again till round 4. So they'll take Robert Spears Jennings and like it.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting you mentioned that about 1 high because if you think about, at least this is my ranking, so obviously everyone's are going to be different, but I have Halsey, Jalen Kilgore, Kamari Ramsey, Jacoby Thomas, all in my top 10. Like those aren't necessarily, you know, deep safeties. Like none of them are. They're either going to play slot, they're going to play down close to the line of scrimmage. So it's interesting you mentioned that, you know, Thieneman is, I mean, most people's second-ranked safety. I mean, he's probably the second best safety in this class on paper. Behind him, like to get an actual deep safety, like you might have to wait a couple rounds in terms of talent. Like some of those other players are, you know, just different skill sets than your traditional, you know, for example, Xavier Watts, right? He's a guy that fell. I mean, I had him ranked 36 last year. I just looked it up because I was like, surely I wasn't that high on him.
I had him 36 too. Hey,
he was 36 for me last year, and what did he get drafted in the 90s? So like
96.
Yeah, so some of these safeties are going to fall, and it's going to be interesting to see which ones fit which specific teams. And like that's the conversation that we should be having moving forward. Like once we get through Senior Bowl, Shrine Bowl, it's what safeties these 5 fit with these 10 teams, these 5 fit with these 10 teams. And that's where the fun starts because you're going to see guys fall. You just are. And it might be Michael Taft because he might be really good production-wise, but he doesn't necessarily have the size that, you know, NFL teams are looking for.
So Taylor, you could produce these podcasts. We think alike.
Yeah,
so,
some of these things are going to be really fun to have these conversations, especially in the safety class that is much, much, much more loaded than it was last year.
Some of those names you mentioned, though, it's like going through that draft last year. When I saw the Bengals, and this is not a knock on the guy at all, but when I saw the Bengals take Demetrius Knight in the second with the safety need and Watts on the board, I was like, okay, maybe they just didn't like him. When I saw the Jags take Caleb Ransaw as a hybrid corner safety out of Tulane over Xavier Watts, I was looking around like, did Watts like hook up with someone's mom on the staff or something? Like, not to be gross, you know, but like really, it was one of those things where I was like, did he tell somebody to go F themselves in the interview? Because I mean, I can tell you from the Falcons board, the Falcons had him as a top 40 player. I mean, I think Ulbrich was about to need a new pair of shorts when he was available at 96. And it really gets overlooked a lot as far as that trade up that the Falcons had to go get James Pierce. They got the 3rd rounder that they subsequently used on Watts. He's the second part of that trade. I mean, hell, the guy tied for second in the league at any position with 5 interceptions this year. And I can tell you, I mean, we could not be any more thrilled as a fan base down here about Watts, particularly as Jesse Bates.
You can go into the Buffalo Bills Twitter, and we picked Landon Jackson over Xavier Watts, and we're having major safety problems this year. So Brandon Bean didn't draft a wide receiver, and he also didn't draft Xavier Watts. So
Hey, I love Landon Jackson. Okay, no Landon Jackson, no Landon Jackson slander in here. I have him. Where did I have Landon Jackson ranked? Probably somewhere in that range, if I had to guess.
I got Malachi Moore. Yay.
Yeah. Well, and ultimately Landon Jackson was going in round 1, late round 1 in some mocks. So
Yeah, I had him
the fact that
29
Buffalo
on my
got
board.
him in
I had him
round
29 on
3,
my board.
yeah, so the fact that Buffalo got him in round 3 felt like value. But going back to the Shrine Bowl safety list or the Senior Bowl safety list, is there a player in either game at safety where Shaw, that you say, if they do this at the Senior Bowl, I'm going to be able to move them up 16 to 32 spots? Is there a guy that has something to prove to you?
Yeah, I mentioned VJ Payne earlier. I want to see it a little bit more than I did in the game to think he's one. And then I'm lower on Bishop Fitzgerald than like Clint is, for example. So like to him, he's already got him there. But to me, he's down in like 15th for my rankings. So like I need to see a little bit more out of Bishop Fitzgerald. I thought the production, like you can see, like I have a production model and I have a tape model. Like he's one of the lowest graded players on the tape side, but production wise, like all like PFF loves him. Like he got awards, so like that ranks well in my model, but on tape, I didn't necessarily see that matching up. So I want to see a little bit more, especially in one-on-ones, things like that. So I'm excited to watch Bishop Fitzgerald.
Clint, anybody for you that they have something to prove to you?
My answer would be Taff out of Texas. I want to eyeball test the length. I want to eyeball test, does he have enough sand in the jeans, for him to be listed at 190? For him to be somebody that I saw who drops his head a good bit and can get slipped off of tackles, while I know they're not going to be out there lighting each other up. I just want to see how rep to rep to rep to rep he kind of looks out there, responds out there with some of the other safeties in this group. For me to be somebody that's a little lower on him than consensus, and definitely from listening through this episode, I'm the lowest of the 4 of us. He's somebody I'm really interested to see. If I walk away going, you know what, man, I got to bump that guy up a few spots. He showed he's every bit of 190. That guy could be 195. He's got more length than I saw on film. He's good technically in terms, like I said, dropping his head. That'd be a good answer for me. And then if I threw a second one, I'm excited to see what the coaches do there in terms of reps and how he matches up in the different spots like we already talked about, so don't need to be repetitive on Kilgore.
Steve, any safeties in the Senior or Shrine that have the chance to move up 16 to 32 spots for you?
I don't, I tend to be lower on guys. I'll give you 2, VJ Payne and DQ Smith. I've been pretty low on them. So, I don't know how much more I could go with the other guys, right? I really don't see, the practices or the 2 games changing, how I feel about Ramsey or EMW or, Halsey, or the list goes on, or Kilgore. But I think, Payne and Smith are the guys that could really make a jump, because as I start putting, the finishing touches on the board going into the combine, like they're fringe, priority free agents for me. So these are the guys that could actually, solidify a draft grade, in my book.
Yeah, I clearly have a ranking type because Zakee Wheatley, VJ Payne, Robert Spears-Jennings, and Deshaun Singleton are all right next to each other in my rankings, and they're all outside the top 15. So any of that style of safety to me is like the ones where you're like the bruiser, you're a bigger body, 6'2", 215, whatever it is, somewhere in that range. Like I need to see something in the one-on-ones. I need to see, something in the game. I want to see a little bit more out of some of these practices. And like those are guys that can definitely make a rise, because I'm lower than consensus on them for sure.
Okay, so why don't we pause for podcaster identification? Clint, do you want to introduce yourself and let everybody know who you are and about all the other draft content that you make?
Yeah, quick. You can find anything I do on my Twitter. It's my name, and as far as the handle, it's NFL Draft Dome. primarily draft content with some focus on my Atlanta Falcons as well. Very active there. So you can find me there for most anything.
And Taylor.
Yep. Pretty easy for me. Footballwithchaw.com. Also on YouTube. Excited to get ramped up into making some more content. So it's mostly been blog stuff recently, but video stuff coming on YouTube. I'm excited to start ranking some of these players. Safeties board. I mean, we're 24 deep at safety right now. So, but yeah, you can follow me on X right there as well.
And Steve.
Yeah, the man with no camera. I promise y'all I do have a face. Normally I'm on here, but can't question my dedication. Even needing medical care, I am live at 7 p.m. Eastern. Yeah, the central spot would be X, Twitter, pick your poison, what you call it, at Steve_NFL. I did launch the Substack. I've got to temper myself, with all the content putting out. I've done work on YouTube with Chaw, and hopefully we could get back into as we move into the meat of draft season. I just got to throw out, this is the first show I've gone live with Clint. He's one of my favorites on Twitter. I think the draft professors are well represented. Certain Falcons Twitter, with Scott and Clint. But man, y'all, it's been a pleasure being live on, pseudo camera with you. One of my favorite dudes in the draft professors and all of Twitter. So this has been a blessing, my brother. I appreciate you hopping in.
Yeah, and I want to echo, one of the things that I love, every draft professor is an individual, but Clint, you have a personality that always seems to be it's made for podcasting. I'm just saying, you have a personality that's made for podcasting. So, I just want to give you a shout out, and I appreciate you.
Yeah, kind of like I used to write with, and this isn't me being negative, but I used to write with Sports Illustrated for a good bit, doing Falcon-specific coverage, and I got told by someone there that my personality might be a little better fitted for a podcast. Kind of like telling somebody they got a face for radio.
You got a face for radio, but you have a personality for podcasting. Hey, that can work. That can work. So, yeah, I have a voice to be a mime. So, it's just one of those things. It's either a gift or a curse. But I want to, first of all, thank Taylor, Steve, and Clint for helping put this podcast together. But I also want to thank a lot of you in the chat. So Ryan Sparks, good to see you. Randy, good to see you. Brandon, good to see you. Anthony, great to see you here. Thank you for stopping by. Did I get everybody? I think I got everybody in the chat. So really good chat today. Thank you so much for stopping by. I do want to remind everybody, every Friday, Draft Professors has a 32-person mock draft on our podcast. So if you're in the chat here, let me know that you're going to be there 7 o'clock on Friday, and I'll make sure that you have a team. So you can pick for your team, you can pick for a different team, but the goal is to start bringing people together for the draft. I got into podcasting and building my own website because I wanted to bring people together. So this is the time of year where we're looking for at least one good drafter from every team so that we can start seeing, what are the Jets going to do now that there's only one quarterback that everybody else had graded high, and Drew Alar, are you a New York Jet now? Right? Something's got to happen, right? So I was in a group text where we were talking about, is Drew Alar going to be the new QB2? So, but the group mocks Friday. Go to my Draft Professor page at NFL Draft Fanatic. The pinned post is where the signups are. So if you have any questions, send me a PM or, just tag me in a post on Twitter. I'm happy to answer them. But again, we have one more podcast tonight. So EJ and Durst are doing their tight end big board at 9 o'clock. So special thanks to Taylor, Stephen, Clint for doing the safeties at the Senior and the Shrine. We're going to be doing tight ends here in about an hour for the 110 people at Draft Professor. Thank you for tuning in and enjoy your night. Thanks, everybody.